We have to like resituate.
Yeah, it's been okay. So I'm coming to see your mom.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I remember I was so nervous. I had on this sweater and
he left the sweater at the light
rail. The sweater
rail.
doesn't look right. I'm just not going to impress her, so I just left it.
He just ditched it.
To hell with it. I want to look my best for her mom. Man, and I got there.
Mind you, it was like raining and stuff, and it was like you walked like in the rain, ditched his coat. He's like, I can't go looking wet and raggedy. It was important to make this impression.
I kind of hoped it would be there when I got back. It wasn't.
It wasn't.
And I remember I got there and she's like, hey, how are you? And she like reached her hand out to me and I'm looking at Asia like, so are you gonna tell her? Or am I gonna tell her? And man, when I took her hand, I was like, hi, my name is Patrick.
No. Back up. That's not how it happened at all.
That's how I remember. Okay.
That's not how it happened.
Remind me then.
He walks in and he does like this nervous side. He's like, hi, ma'am. And he goes to shake her hand. And she looks at him, and at first she was going to shake his hand, and then she's really hesitant, and she's like, what's your name? And she knew. Like, she absolutely knew. She just wanted that confirmation that it was who she thought it was. And he took her hand to shake it, and she slid her hand back, like, almost like a don't touch me type deal. And she's like, okay, what's your name? And he's like, my name's Patrick. And she's like, okay. And, like, she looks at me like, how fucking dare you?
Like, really, nigga? And that was the most awkward conversation. We sat in the living room for about a half an hour.
I don't even remember. Like, that's the only part I remember.
And we're talking, and I'm just like, so you know, Asia and I are not together. We don't talk about being together.
And according to her, well, to her knowledge, it was completely a coincidence.
It was long since over.
Yeah.
And I made sure, I told her, like, I'm going to stay in constant contact with you because in order to do some of these scenes, we were going to be at a Motel 6. So it's
you told her that?
Yeah. I was like, so I would make sure I posted pictures of all of us there working on it.
Why would you tell her that?
Because I was trying to be up front. Like,
that's why she was suspicious when we did that whole like getaway thing, and
so
I wanted to randomly stay in a Motel 6 by myself overnight.
That was
two times.
That was long after. But it was important. I wanted her to know that there was a legitimate show, and I would send her footage like, see, here's what we did today. I wanted her to know we were actually working on the show. The show's garbage.
It's garbage.
The show, I have no problem telling you. It's like
really
the writing
bad.
is campy and cheesy. That's all my fault. The actors were bad. It's like there was no, even Asia. She did her best, but there were no redeeming qualities about this show. It's still up. It still exists. It's out there.
Don't advertise it. It's
just
crap.
Bad. It's just, oh my God, it was not good. But that was our excuse to spend more time together. And after the show wrapped and I ended up having computer issues, we were only able to do like 4 episodes to get them out. But now we're at this point where we're talking serious and we're
But wait, before you go there, in January, right after I turned 18, before he met my mom, I proposed to him. Now, we had already been talking about getting married, and we didn't mention earlier that he had proposed to me shortly after he had got out here. We had agreed to get married. That's when he gave me the clattering and everything, and this was just what we were going to do. So, we were technically engaged for a while.
Technically.
But, I didn't want to do it for a long time, tried to do my own thing. And when I turned 18, I remember calling him and I was like, hey, I want to get married. I want to do this. Like, let's go. Let's do this. I'm ready. And he was so excited. And I was excited.
Next day.
2 days later, give me some credit. It was an extra day. 2 days later, I chickened out and I was like, indecisive. I can't. Because, okay, to my knowledge, I just turned 18. I'm like, I'm an adult now. Like, I can do stuff. I can get out there, and I was so scared that I would be missing out on life if I had decided to settle down right away. So we were kind of like at that awkward stage where we were kind of engaged, but not really.
It was this awkward. We were together, but not. We were engaged, but maybe it was weird. And God, was it August or September of 2012 where she came over? And we were just playing video games. It was like every other day. It was no big deal. We're just hanging out. We're playing games. And we'd gotten to a point where it was like, yeah, it's getting late. Is it time to go ahead?
Wait. But before that, we have... Because you're talking about the movie one, right?
Yeah.
No, but I thought you wanted to touch on Alberto. Or are we not? Are we skipping that?
Oh yeah, I guess there was the.
Well, the reason I want to touch on it is because there's an important part for me, at least.
Okay, go for it.
So I got in a job, my like first like real job at a restaurant, and I had sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I got in like my first like real job, and I didn't realize what it really was until like later on. But anyway,
I knew. I always knew.
there was my manager there. He was technically my manager, and I ended up being involved with my manager, and
They were having sex.
we were having sex.
There was no relationship.
There was
he
no.
lived with his baby mama. Like,
Well,
come on.
wait, I'm supposed to be telling the story.
Excuse
Jeez.
me. I'm sorry, excuse me.
Anyway, there I had a manager there, and we kind of started talking, and we got involved, and for me, I was very cautious at first, but he was really nice, really sweet, and yeah, we ended up getting involved in everything, and I remember this was during a time where I was still kind of unsure. I was completely legal now, but I was still unsure of what it is I wanted, what I wanted to do. And I was also, it was my own issues that I was dealing with, as well as what my mother was telling me. And mind you, again, my mother's super Christian. And, sorry,
Okay.
during this time, I remember I went to my mom and I told her, it's like, look, I really want to be with Patrick. This is what I want to do. And I remember her telling me that I shouldn't be with him because he was older, and she was giving me this long list of reasons on why. And I remember arguing with her and arguing her down, like, yeah, but this is what I want. You know, I'm an adult now. I can do what I want to do. I'm just kind of letting you know.
Right? Like, I wasn't looking for permission.
Yeah. And I remember she quoted a scripture to me, talking about honoring your parents and basically how it was a sin not to. And I remember being so torn, because I was also having a hard time dealing with my own faith and what it is I really believed and what I felt like I had to believe and what was right and what was wrong. And I remember being so upset, and I called him and just like, my mom's right. The Bible does say to honor your parents in all things. So do I do what my mom wants me to do, or do I do what I want to do? And it was so hard for me. And I remember she went so far as to say, hey, you know that Alberto guy, you know, you should date him. He seems like a nice guy. And she was encouraging me to date other people. She was so against the idea of me being with Patrick that she anybody but him, pretty much.
Yeah.
So much that she was like, hey, Alberto's, because my mother worked in like, the restaurant was in a state building, and she worked in that building, so she would come down often for lunch and everything. And you know, she would see him and he would say hi, and they were, you know, friendly, but you know, everybody was friendly with, you know, the workers. So you know, she's just like, hey, he seems like a nice guy, you should date him.
Of course he did.
And I remember thinking like, maybe I should. And I was still involved with him. This guy, he had a he had like 2 kids, and like one of like his baby mothers he was staying with. And I remember him telling me, he's like, oh yeah, we live together, but we don't have sex or anything. And I'm like, okay, well that's possible. But then it came out that they slept in the same bed, but they didn't have sex. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, hold on, that doesn't really sound right. But that didn't really stop me. We only ended up having sex, I think it was 2 times, actually. It was just 2 times. And
note that I haven't had sex with anybody else since I got here.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there. It was just
made me feel so slutty.
Just saying. Just saying.
Yeah. So I remember the first time that I had sex with him, I ended up telling him, and it did not go well. And he's just like, hey, don't let this happen again. Like, just don't. And it's like, okay, I won't. I did it again. And I remember I told him, and it crushed him. It crushed him hard. And I don't remember how long after, but I want to say, I think what happened, we got into a big argument, and it wasn't good for his health. And I remember,
and see, we were talking about how I got better. It wasn't like, oh, one day. This was a long process,
yeah.
and it was like, at this point, it's like mid 2012, and I'm getting there, but I'm still not like better.
Yeah. So we get into like this huge argument. And, you know, I hang up on him. He hangs up on me. He's like, if this is what you want to do it. But don't string me along. He told me, he's like, I don't have another boyfriend in me. I can't do this again. And I was trying to decide, it's like, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to pursue this the way my mom wants me to? The way that, you know, but I want to be a good daughter. I want to follow the Bible, but I also know what I want. And it was just a hard time for me and very confusing. And I remember he called me, and he was in the hospital. I guess he had like a really bad panic attack, and his heart was still very weak. And I remember he told me that it wasn't looking good, and that if I wanted to be with him, then I would have to prove it. And he told me to come.
That was terrible of me to do
and
that.
I remember he told me, he was like, you did this. This is your fault. You're why I'm here.
Very wrong
and while it was wrong, it was needed. And I remember telling him, it's like, I will get there no matter what. I'll make sure I get there. And I remember knowing how important it was that I was by his side, whether it was just, you know, a close call or if this was it didn't matter. You know, I felt like I had to be there. I had to prove this to him.
I don't think I ever said this to you, but I think for you, it was finally like this real thing for you as you were talking to the doctor about my condition. It was like suddenly it's not, here's just this guy saying he's sick. Here's a doctor saying, here are the tests and here are the charts. We see what's wrong. I think you needed to see that to know I just wasn't pulling your leg.
But no, and I knew you weren't pulling, because I came at least once other time, like when I was like not of age yet, to visit you. So I knew it was a very real thing, but this was important to me because I needed to show you that I was serious. I remember calling a taxi, and I told Mom, I was like, hey, I have to go. I'll be back. And she's like, well, where are you going? I'm like, Patrick's in the hospital, and I need to go. I need to be by his side. And I remember her telling me, no, you're not. You're not going to go. He's a grown man. No. And I remember telling her, this is important. I have to go. And she forbid me from going. And we had a huge argument for so long that the taxi actually ended up leaving. Like, he called to tell me he was there, and he was sitting outside, and he actually left because
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we were arguing, and I was trying to figure out a way where I could leave, but also, you know, it was just a hard time. And I remember I ended up calling another taxi, and I decided, I was like, no matter what, when this taxi comes, I'm leaving. I'm going. And she forbid me from going. She's like, if you walk out that door. And I was like, I have to go. It was important to me. The next taxi came, and I remember I went and I got in the cab. And at this time I was working, so I had a little bit of money. And I'm in the cab, and the guy, he's a nice guy. He's just trying to make some conversation. Hey, where you on your way to? And I'm like, I'm going to the hospital, and, you know, I have to go visit somebody. And, you know, he's just trying to be nice and make conversation. But I'm worried. I'm scared. I want to make sure I get there. I need to see him. This was important to me. I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that I had to be there. And I remember he was just making small talk, and I'm trying my best to be friendly and not show that I'm like having a panic attack. And I remember we're driving around, and for whatever reason, this particular day out of all days, there's like construction by emergency. So we have to go the long way around, and I remember being so frustrated. And I remember we pulled up, and he's like, hey, look, this ride's on me. Just go do what you have to do. And I remember being so touched that he didn't charge me, and it was just like,
I didn't know that either.
Wow, that's so nice of you. And I remember I rushed in, and I went and I saw him, and I don't think that he thought I was really going to come. And I remember the doctors came in like, he's okay. It was just a panic attack, you know, it's a false alarm, but you need to relax. You need to not worry yourself. You need to stay calm. And we ended up staying maybe a half an hour to an hour. And afterwards, we ended up leaving.
We walked to that McDonald's.
And we walked to, yeah, because it was like 5 in the morning at this point, like super late or super early. Nothing was running, nothing was open but the McDonald's. And we went and we sat. And we ended up getting into a heated argument again. And it was about Alberto again. And I remember I sat on the curb and I was crying. And we just had it out really hard. And but by the time the trains were running again and it was time for me to come, he walked me home. And I remember telling him, call me when you get home. And he got home and he called me and everything. And I walked back in the door. And my mother, she was asleep. My siblings were asleep. I went in my room, went to sleep, got up, went to work the next morning, came home. Mom was just like, you know, so how did it go? I was like, well, it went fine. And she said something like, oh, I see you're back or something like that. And she just didn't say anything else about it. And I mean, what was there to say? You know, I went, I did what I had to do. And yeah, after that, I remember.
We got to touch on the herpes scare.
Yeah, well, it wasn't herpes. It was a chlamydia scare. So basically, what happened was, while I had made some mistakes that I'm not proud of, I never got anything. I was always, you know, clean. Luckily, I never had any scares or anything like that. But for whatever reason, he was under the impression that Alberto may have something. He just had a feeling. And that was enough for me to say, fuck that,
well, you
never
made it sound
again.
Like it was me, like I was just this horrible
No,
person.
No, not in a bad way. It's just he thought it was a possibility, and that was enough for me. Like, honestly, anybody could have came to me. It could have been a homeless guy on the street and say, hey, you might want to be careful. The idea of it being a possibility was enough for me. And I remember we had a conversation on the phone. I was so scared. I was like, what if? What if? And the reason it was such a scare is because with some of my other mistakes, we always used protection, and it wasn't as much of a scare. When I was in a relationship with Darren, we would use protection, relationship. But the only scare really was the idea of getting pregnant. But it was never like, oh, I might get a disease or something. But with Alberto, I barely knew him. And I had intercourse with him 2 times. And with both of those times, we didn't use protection. And the idea of, and I wasn't even thinking about, hey, you should do that. Because with this one, protection wasn't a thing.
We tried the condom thing.
We tried it before, and it just wasn't a thing. And I think I took advantage of the idea of, oh, well, you know, I'm like that with him. And young, naive, stupid. So I remember freaking out hard, and he stayed up with me all night. And the second the sun came up, he got on the light rail and he met me at the train station, and we went to a clinic.
No, we went to Safeway first. We went to Safeway and we ate donuts and we drank.
We did. And I remember I was like, "What if I have something?" And I remember he kissed me and he told me, "If you have it, I have it. I don't care about that. It doesn't change the way I look at you." We ended up going to a clinic and getting checked out, and I remember the guy who tested me, he said, hey, just to let you know, no news is good news. So if you don't hear from us, you're good. Never heard anything. I also, like, you know, got confirmation that there was nothing. I didn't just take, like, what if I missed a call? But I was absolutely fine. And to this day, I don't know if he had anything or not, but the possibility, even if it was a 1% chance, I wasn't going to take
it as an absolute certainty. Yeah, I know.
So I remember I ended up, I was at work one day, and Alberto, he came in, and he wasn't even working that day. And I think everybody kind of suspected that something was going on, but nobody said anything. And I didn't realize until after I was out of the situation that it was probably kind of bad for him, you know, to be, as a manager, involved with an employee like that. But I remember he came into work, and I know he came in just to see me. He came in, he's like, hey, what time do you get off? And I told him I was getting off soon, and he offered to give me a ride home. And I knew what he wanted, but I also knew that I didn't want to do that anymore. And I took the ride because that was going to be me, you know, pretty much breaking off whatever you want to call that off. We're in the car, and I remember I ended up asking him, I was like, hey, just curious, how many women have you been with? How many women have you slept with? And it was something around, it was in the teens. And to me, that's a lot. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's just me personally. I feel like that's a lot. And he said some number, 18, something like that.
Wow.
And I was just like, all right. Not that was going to change. He could have said 2, but it wasn't going to change my mind, you know, but I was just curious. But anyway, I ended up telling him, hey, this is not going to work. It's not going to be a thing. And he was pissed. He was mad. And it affected my job. My hours got cut badly. He didn't mistreat me, but he kind of mistreated me. And if I had known my rights then...
I tried to tell her, I was like, you know, technically, you could sue for that. She was like, no, he's got kids. It was like, well, he should have thought about that.
Yeah, if I knew. But,
we'd be rich now.
We would.
Whatever.
But anyway, and I remember after a couple of weeks, he tried to kind of ease back in. And I remember something was going on one day where it was like some kind of like ice cream social or something. And we were all sitting on our break having ice cream. And he had like a different kind than me or something. He's like, hey, yeah, try this. And I'm like, no, thank you. No, dude, I was like, yeah, I did not want to, nah. And like it was like some drink and everybody was like sharing or something. He's like, hey, try this. And I'm like, no. And I remember being very cautious not to like eat off him, or even though we weren't like, it was nothing sexual anymore, I didn't even want to like, just the possibility was enough for me. And once he realized that, and I remember he tried again. He's like, hey, you know, we should. I'm like, no. And he was pissed. And it came out that I wasn't at that point. We decided that this is what at this point. It was like August.
Yeah, it was
and
August.
I had enough of, you know, trying to figure out what I wanted.
August 2012.
Yeah, August 2012. And I've always known what I wanted. It's just I never really had the courage to actually go for it. And I had decided, we went to the mall and hung out and spent time together. And I remember coming home, and at that point I was like going back and forth seeing him and seeing Kari. And I remember one day I cried when I had to leave. I didn't want to leave. I just wanted to be with them. And after one day when we were spending time together, I went home, and I just had enough of having to go back and forth, not being able to be with him because I'm scared of what my family's going to think, of what my mom's going to think. And I just decided, you know, honestly, fuck that. Like, this is what I want. I want to be here. I'm tired of, you know, oh, well, maybe Steve's the one. Maybe I should try to work it out. I was just done. I just wanted to finally follow my heart. And we decided
Did we announce it on Facebook that month?
We announced it on Facebook that night. I made I changed my thing to engage to Patrick Harris, and
boy, your mama was not.
And the next day I told her, I was like, hey, did you see? And she's like, yeah, I saw. And basically, long story short, we didn't get many supporters. It was. People took a shit on us really hard.
Nobody was for that. Like, people were coming out of the war. You gonna let her be with this old man? You don't know him, that was a mess.
It was bad. Even to this day, it honestly is still like that. The only difference is people aren't as vocal about it, but it's extremely obvious. Even with my own mother, which is. It's only sad because it's my mom. Like, with everyone else, I'm kind of like, whatever. But, you know, it's a little bit hurtful that my mom still, you know, and don't get me wrong, from a mother's perspective, I can understand, like, how frustrating it must be. You know, it's like this older man involved with your daughter. But, At this point, we've been married for over 3 years.
No, you can't skip over.
What?
Yeah, you skipping.
I am?
September. Where
okay, yeah,
see,
that's
no.
important. No, I was kind of talking about how we still deal with that, and I went over. Okay, so you want to tell that?
Yeah, so it's into August, September 2012. She's over our house. We're playing video games. I tried to touch on this earlier, and she was like, "No, there's other stuff." And we're playing games, and we notice the time, and there's one more train that's gonna get her home.
We always wait till the last minute.
So it's like, okay, let's get to this train and get you home. So we're like hustling to the train, and it goes by.
No.
Yeah.
No. What happened was, we're sitting there, we're playing video games, having a good time. And a train is getting ready to come, but we realize we're not going to make it. But there's one more train. So we could have made the train, and you said, hey, you should just call your mom and tell her you're not going to make it just to see what happens.
Okay, whatever.
Yeah,
all
just
right.
to see what happens. And we're like, all right. Now, mind you, we're on our way to the train station, but we still decide to call just to see what she's going to say. So I called her, I'm like, hey, Mom, hanging out with Patrick and Kari, the last train went by. Like, I'm not going to be able to make it. Or I think I said something like, I'm not going to be able to make this last train, or I missed, or something along the lines of, I'm not going to be able to make it, and I'm just going to stay here the night, and I'll come back in the morning. Mind you, at this point, I'm an adult, I'm working, And she's like, unacceptable. You come home now. Like, we got into this heated argument, and at first,
hung up on her.
I did.
And she called me. It was like, if you were a real man, you would send her home. We missed the part about the flea market where she called and was like, she is not your wife. You are not her boyfriend. You go,
and she accused him of beating
that
on
that
me.
was like 2011, I think.
No, that was 20. No, actually, it was 2012. I was 18.
Okay.
But anyway, and mind you, at first, like, we could have made the train, and I was all ready to go home. And that conversation was really just to see what she would say. But it went quickly from, oh, let me see what she would say, to, hold on, wait a minute. You're not going to tell me what I can and can't do. And I told her, I was like, well, suddenly I want to stay the night. And I remember we turned around and started walking back to his place. And I was just like, Mom, I'm staying the night here. I'll see you in the morning. Sorry. And I remember, I hung up on her. She called him. They had some words. She called me back.
I was very particular. I was like, it's not my choice.
Yeah, it's not my choice.
This
hers.
is for her. Like, I don't push my thoughts on her.
And it really wasn't. And I remember he told me, he's like, I don't want you to be on bad terms with your mom. Maybe you should just go home. But it was important to me. Like, this was important. Like, I'm gonna stay now. Like, at first, I was gonna go home. I'll see you tomorrow, honey. But this was important now. I'm staying the night. And I remember she called me back and she told me, she said, if you do not come home tonight, don't worry about coming home at all. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll live here now. And I've been with him ever since. I got off the phone with her and she told me not to bother coming home if I didn't come home that night. And that's what she said too. She's like, if you don't make the train, then you take a taxi and I'll pay for it. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, again, it was just important to me. And it was hard because this was like, it had been leading up to this point for a long time. But that was like the first time where I told my mother, no, like, this is what I'm doing. I'm staying here. And I cried. It was hard, but I was also sticking to my guns. And I think for him, he thought it was like, all right, she's gonna stay for a couple of days, and then she's gonna go back to her mom's. But
she didn't.
We went for a long walk that night, and I remember I didn't have anything. I just had my purse, the things I brought, and my outfit that I had on. And, I like borrowed some of his clothes, and I, stayed the night.
You was in my boxers, and you all hanging off you.
And I remember I remember feeling so warm and bubbly. Like, I woke up, and like when you stay somewhere and you forget that you stayed there the night, and you wake up, you're like, where am I for a second? And I woke up, and I remember he was laying next to me, and he was cuddling me, and I remember like, wow, I've never been able to do this. Like, I would come and see him. We would go to Motel 6. We would hang out. We would fall asleep and wake up. Oh, shoot, we got to go. I got to get you home.
But there was no time
There was no time constraints. And I woke up and I was able to wake up next to him, you know? And I remember waking up and it just felt nice. But also, it was hard because I was on horrible terms with my mother. And I waited a couple of days, and she called me, and she said, "Hey, Pooh, are you coming home?" And
funny how that switched real quick.
Yeah.
Don't ever come home to, are you coming home?
Yeah, are you? And she's like, you always have a place here. You can come home. And it was important to me not. And I told her, I was like, I'm not coming home. But I did ask her if I can come and pick up some things. And I remember I purposely waited until they were gone, and I went, and then he went with me. At a light rail. He stayed at the light rail station. Like, he knew better than to try to go. It would have been a mess.
That was a situation. I'm gonna stay here,
and,
but I also was ready for you to not come back.
Yeah, really?
Yeah,
not come back to the light rail.
Yeah, I would wait, and I figured that she would be there, and she'd be like, "Oh, Pooh," and she would get you, and you'd be like, "I'm sorry, honey, I'm not coming home."
I remember I went in. And I think it was on a Sunday because I remember going when I knew they would be at church. And I got my suitcases and I just started packing. Started packing as much as I can put in there, all my necessities, all the things I needed. And I remember I walked back to the train with like 2 big, huge suitcases. And I remember he was like, "Wow, okay." And I think it shocked him, like, this is what we're doing. Yeah. You're serious. You're really coming.
I mean, I was never against it, but I
was flip-flopping.
I had seen you flip-flop so many times. I was ready.
And went back, and a couple of weeks passed. Like, I would see her.
We were going to get married in November.
We were.
But money did not allow for such. It's like we were broke.
I was still working.
We wanted to get married November 14th, which was the day all of that started. But again, money was a thing.
I would still see her when I would go to work because I was still working the job. And I remember she called me one day, and she was going to like some women's conference, some Christian women's conference, and she invited me to go, and I'm like, yeah, I'll go with you. And now that I look back, I know she was asking me to go because she was thinking she can deliver me from being with Patrick or wanting to be with him because she thinks it's so bad.
You had to save me. You're like, oh, thank you for delivering me from this evil man who loved me.
Should we stop it and do another one?
You know what? No. It's like, we just about here now.
Okay. So, anyway, we went to this conference, and I remember she asked me, like, so what are you going to do? Did you decide you're going to do? Are you going to come home? Are you going to stay? And I'm like, I'm staying. Like, I thought that was pretty clear, but I'm staying.
I'm at home now.
And she's like, all right. So, yeah, I stayed, and I ended up leaving my job.
I got that crappy job at Target.
Yeah, I left my job. I was so eager to leave that job, like, for so many reasons. I just wanted to be gone. And
we lived in that little room. I had a roommate, and he was I didn't care if he was cool with it or not. It was like, what happens in my room is kind of my business. I paid rent for that room. It was like, shut up. And we stayed there until we got this place. That was what, October, November?
We ended up getting married. We decided, hey, we should do it on February 14th. By that time we had like tax money and stuff, so it was kind of like a fresh start for us. It was like the first time I could get taxes because I had been working the previous year. He got his taxes back. We got a good chunk of change back, and at first we wanted to do something where we invited some people, but then we realized, like, we don't have any supporters. Nobody was gonna come.
Why have a big wedding? We'd be sitting there, the only 2 people at the wedding.
Right. No. So we just had like a small ceremony, and we apartment hunted and everything, and I found this place, which was right in our price range, the perfect amount of room for the 3 of us. And right after we got married, like a week later.
Not even a week later. It's like,
yeah,
we were out of there.
We were out of there, and we were moving in here, and we had officially like started our family, and
the rest, you would say, is history. Like, that was pretty much the wedding was really interesting because nobody came. Like, I had a friend who